If you're looking to maximize the productivity on every acre of your farm, there is no better line of crop protectants on the market than those offered by Syngenta. From seed treatments to protect your sensitive seedlings, herbicides to reduce weed competition amongst your growing fields, to fungicides and insecticides to protect your valuable grains from pests and pathogens, Syngenta has it all. 8 weeks ago, we literally laid down the heat with Acuron GT out in our cornfields. With the help of its 4 different active ingredients, you could almost say that we went scorched earth on pesky weeds like water hemp, giant ragweed, and mare's tail. I'll just let the results do the talking on this one. Acuron GT and the Acuron line of corn herbicides in general are the real deal. They are the only place on the market where you can get the patented Group 27 bicyclopyrone chemistry, and if you're in the market for an elite corn program, do some research into the Acuron products. Although the Acuron corn herbicides are one very important tool in Syngenta's extensive and exclusive portfolio, there is much more to be found than just that. Weed control is just one portion of a solid management plan for both corn and soybeans. The ultimate goal here is to have more green in your fields and come harvest time, more green in your wallet. Hence Syngenta's better yield, better deal mantra. With the powerful residual herbicide chemistries in the Acuron line of products keeping our cornfields clean until harvest, we now move our focus on to the pathogens that are a little bit more troublesome to spot and deal with. For our cornfields that have entered the reproductive stages of the life cycle, we are actively trying to promote plant health and stress mitigation while fighting off strong diseases like southern rust, tar spot, gray leaf spot, northern corn leaf blight, and many more. We are doing this on our farm with Syngenta's flagship corn fungicide, Miravis Neo. The data is pretty clear. If you don't want to pick mediocre yielding, disease-ridden down corn, Miravis Neo is the product for you and also the best product in the market. In a similar fashion to corn, we are also relying on Syngenta's premium soybean fungicide to fight off diseases in our soybean fields. We typically take a large hit from diseases like frog eye leaf spot, pod and stem blight, cercospora blight and leaf spot, brown spot, and a whole plethora of other yield-robbing diseases. More often than not, corn and soybean fungicides are talked of as an afterthought to a solid management program. In my opinion though, fungicides should be a staple of every farmer's regiment because they not only have a tangible return on investment, but there is also an incalculable increase in plant health and standability come harvest time, especially with corn. At the bare minimum, if any of these products spark any kind of curiosity in you out there, I highly recommend you find out what kind of value Syngenta's crop protection line can offer you with one of the links on the video. Another great option to find out more is to talk to your preferred chemical supplier or retailer, or of course talk to your local Syngenta representative. I want to give you guys all a huge shout out for your attention on this sponsored segment of the video, and of course to our friends at Syngenta for helping me provide awesome content to you all. Back to the regularly scheduled programming. Morning. For the most part, crops still look excellent. It hasn't rained yet, and it's been 4 or 5 weeks now since the last measurable rainfall, or at least last significant rainfall. Let me correct myself, because we did have a couple tenths the other day, which is a negligible amount at this point in the year. There's a good chance here on Sunday, so today we're going to try and wrap up the last of our soybean post-emerge herbicide applications. Over the last few days, we did our regular maintenance on the Hagie, greased everything up. We need to check our fluids before we fire it up today, and of course we topped off the fuel tank. Didn't touch the DEF because you can get a pretty good run out of the DEF tank without needing to top it off. It's ready to rock and roll. The tanker, which has the Enlist, the clethodim, and the Zidua SC in it, has been sitting for well over 48 hours now. Probably gonna fire it up real quick and let that agitate for a while to make sure all that chemical's mixed up. I don't have an exact number. I'd say we've probably got somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 gallons on there. I bet you running wide open with that big pump, it could be fully mixed in less than a couple of minutes. We'll go ahead and fire it up, let it start mixing. We don't have a huge chunk of acres to knock out today, should get it done in a handful of hours. Not super pressed for time. We've got good weather, smooth winds, really no reason to put the hammer down too hard. Don't let everyone fool you. This spraying thing isn't really that bad. Not too difficult to get everything done in a timely manner. Both our main tank valves are open, front agitation valve's open, fill valve is closed. This is just an air drain. It doesn't really matter if the fill valve's closed. We'll choke this Honda motor and fire it up. I could be wrong. I don't think anything in this this mixture is really prone to settling out. As long as it's mixed in the right order initially, it should all be fine. I've heard that the Enlist or the 2,4-D is a little bit troublesome and doesn't play well with others, which is why that mixing order is so important. Everything was mixed up when we picked it up. We're just kind of restirring anything that might have settled out. I've been thinking about something with our agitation system, so I'm going to climb up here real quick and talk shop with you. I probably ought to get some defoamer in there. I knew this might be an issue. Our agitation is dumping on top of the solution. Typically when you dump from the top to the bottom without actually incorporating underneath, you get a lot of that foaming. Foaming's not a huge deal, but it is kind of inconvenient. If you look really closely, you can actually see the defoamer in there eating away at the foam. This is the back tank. Since I've got both valves open and I'm only agitating to the front, it's actually taking all the product and just shooting it into the front tank continuously. There is something settled out on the bottom there. I have no idea what that is. I think if I agitate to the back, it should fix it. Our agitation system on the front and the back is basically just an angled 2-inch piece of stainless steel. This one is flattened at the end to kind of fan it out. I've been thinking after using all that atrazine on corn and having issues with the product settling out, that I'd almost like to just try getting about a 4-foot piece of 2-inch pipe and running it almost all the way to the bottom here and just blasting the product in agitation straight against the bottom of the tanker, creating a very violent mixing. I think that would be better than just throwing it on top. This mixes it all right, but at the end of the day, you really need something that is pushing against the bottom and continuously churning this up. I'm going to hop out real quick and flip the switch to the back and see if maybe we can pick a little bit of that up in solution. There's Chris just driving around dragging the mower, not paying any attention. The mower's meant to be drugged, but you really don't want to just drive around with it down if you can avoid it. What I just showed you was not a great example of our failure to mix, because there's nothing in here. It's just perfectly pushing that product against the wall and rolling it around. When there's actually a decent amount of solution in the tank is when you have issues, because that water just hits the other water and doesn't actually get down below and disturb everything. We'd use a 4 or 5 foot piece of 2-inch stainless straight to the bottom and recreate that same effect, just continuously blasting that product against the bottom of the tanker. Hydraulic oil is a little bit lower than I'd like to see, although the boom is unfolded and on the ground, which could have something to do with it. You can tell the sprayer tank is selling out a little bit too. Very little product in here though. I bet that's less than 50 gallons. I'll turn the agitator on. Not going to matter because when I fill it up, this will all mix. Agitation's pretty simple. Turn the main pump switch on, put her in manual, build up some pressure. Since the sprayer's also been sitting for 2 days and I do have product in the boom, I'm going to pull forward a little bit so I'm off the grass and run the tiniest bit of product out just to make sure we've got some freshly mixed stuff in the boom, charged up and ready to go, as well as avoid any kind of issues if those chemicals pulled some kind of corn herbicide that was hung up in the lines down while it was sitting. No, this is not off-label. If you look very closely, you may have to squint over there. There is a soybean right there. These products are labeled for soybean use, so we're just cleaning up our soybean field. which is a big if. It should all fit on here with a little bit of extra room. Works out perfectly because I'm gonna go spray what'll be a slower field, a few smaller parcels, some folding up, some 60-foot spraying at a time, things that kind of slow you down as an operator. And I'll send Jeff first thing up to Helena to get our last big load of chemical for spraying soybeans. You can barely see it. That's the sight line right there. I've noticed that the pump cannot run full capacity once both tanks get low. I don't think it can feed into the lines as fast as the pump can push it out to the sprayer. I usually slow the engine down a little bit, that way it's not pumping a lot of air through. I just pulled into the first field of the day. I mentioned earlier that it's a little bit choppy. I'm gonna need both hands pretty regularly for this one. So I'll check back in with you when I'm done with it. Unless, of course, I snap one of my booms off on a tree, which is not out of the realm of possibilities. We finished that first field up. It was 34 acres, but it took the time of about 100 acres in the square field. I still have room for improvement in terms of picking the right auto steer angle that doesn't require me to go back and fill in a bunch of corners, because that's what I've had to do so far in this field. One of these days I'll pick the right line out of the gate, but I've not mastered that skill yet. I've been farming for all these years now, and it still amazes me how distinctly you can tell the different soil types by looking out across the canopy on the field. Where there's really dark, lush soybeans, probably your lower lying, darker productive soils. The lighter areas, the soybeans just aren't as developed. That's not to say that the light areas cannot produce as well as the dark areas. They just need a little bit more rainfall, which we haven't exactly had. On to the next one. Nothing quite like spraying clethodim, a selective grass killer that toasts any kind of corn with the wind blowing towards your grandpa's cornfield. Hopefully we don't get them, because that'd be an awkward conversation. Fields, and this one we're about to start on is the biggest. It's 90 acres, so I'll have to fill twice. I'm going to fill before I start, ring the field, come back, and then fill one more time, and that'll get this one done. Had enough to spray around the outside of this field. It's 90 acres, oddly shaped, so I don't even know the exact acreage of one 120-foot pass around the outside. If I had to guess, somewhere between 15 and 25 acres. That's what, 300 to 450 gallons, if not a tad bit more depending on how I spray it. We'll put 800 or 900 gallons in it, go spray around, come back to the same exact spot once I ring the outside, because this is where I'll start. I should burn off, 300-400 gallons, top it off, and that'll be enough to finish this field. Time to knock out another 90. I just sprayed one pass around the outside and got the answer to my question. I was definitely low on my estimate because it shows we've sprayed 31 acres. Good thing we topped off. This is just a weird farm to spray. It's got a lot of terraces that are at varying angles. Some of them are rather large. It's pretty hard to stay on top of your manual boom control out here. The automatic height control just doesn't quite cut it when you're trying to pass over some of these large terraces. Done with that one. Average 15.05 gallons an acre, which is pretty good for the odd shape of that field. I'm now headed to the last two fields, which are to the south, down closer to Neoga. Here's our stop. Tanker's waiting on us for the last fill of soybean post-herbicides. Remaining to spray, I need a little over 800 gallons. I'm at 700 in the sprayer right now. Let's just hope that I did my math right when I dispatched this last load. Looks like we're going to be about right on the money. 850 gallons in the tank. I think I need like just under 800, so we're going to go ahead and start spraying. There's 33 acres down. Let's go spray our last 17. We're floating right at 300 gallons. 17 acres is going to be just shy of 300 gallons, so it'll be close whether or not we have enough. Alrighty, we are here north of Neoga. Time for one last 17-acre ride. Unfortunately, it looks like this farm's a little weedy. New to us this year, so sometimes it takes a few years to get the weed control under wraps. Good news, everyone. We didn't run out of chemical down there. Well, I didn't think I was gonna have any bad news to complement the good news. I had this little feedlot that I left to spray last just west of the farm here. It's not even an acre and a half, maybe 2 acres, I don't know. I thought I had enough in the tank to spray it. I literally ran out the minute I turned my boom on and sprayed about 5 foot, no product left. So barely made it home from there, I guess, technically, because I didn't even have enough to spray this little 2-acre field. So the math was very close on that one. No big deal. I'll probably just take the sprayer home, put a little water in it, go get some more Enlist, come back here and just tank mix it. I don't know if I'll do it today or tomorrow or Monday or whatever, but we'll get it done. Ah, the old drive of shame. Oh yes, I'd say she's empty. The problem is that I don't normally count that little field in my math because it's just not on our list of fields. It's kind of like a bonus field. So I thought surely I gave myself enough extra to not need to get more. It's only 3 o'clock, so I'm gonna run up to Helena real quick, get 5 acres worth of Enlist, and then maybe a little Roundup. Doesn't really matter what I put with it. We use the clethodim on the majority of our acres because it was a more cost-effective option, and it also picked up volunteer corn that, you know, was there from last year. But for whatever I have left, I'll just throw Roundup in it and be done with it. I wonder if that's for the 12-row corn head. I lied. That first track was a warm-up for the real walk of shame. Gotta go to the mix bay and get some chemical. There's what we need right there. I'd love to demo one of those new Rogators. I actually don't mind the colors. Heard they're pretty good machines. Maybe someday. Back at the farm, first order of business is getting this hose into the tank of the sprayer. Maybe about 65 or 70 gallons. Should be good, assuming the hose is long enough. It's gonna be close in that regard. Just barely had enough. Fire that up real quick and bring the chemicals up. I actually don't know the proper mixing order. I want to say the Enlist is technically supposed to go in first. This is not super scientific. I'm gonna throw in maybe a little over a gallon of Roundup. You really don't need that much to kill grasses. A gallon is 128 ounces. We'll just fill this thing full. That ought to do. Next up is going to be our Enlist. I changed my mind. I'm going to put 100 gallons in the spray tank. We are using a quart of Enlist per acre, which is 2 pints or 32 ounces. I'm going to throw in about a gallon and a quarter or so. Now that I think about it, I need more than a gallon and a quarter. I need closer to 2 gallons in here for 100 gallons worth. Let the sprayer mix that batch up a little bit. Mosey on down the road and finish this up. Hopefully we don't run out a second time. That'd be really embarrassing. Whew, disaster averted. We didn't run out. To be fair, I put 7 acres of product in for a 2-acre patch, so that definitely would have been on me if I ran out. Speaking of things that were my fault, I have one last thing to clean up, and that's where I started spraying Enlist for the first time, right here east of the main farm. I want to hop out and show you something really quick. You see this mare's tail right here? Classic symptoms of growth regulator herbicides. Twisted up and starting to turn towards the ground. You see this thick patch of water hemp right where I started that is not showing the signs of growth regulator herbicides? There's a reason for that. And no, it's not because this water hemp is already resistant to 2,4-D. Operator error right here, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, I had product in the tank, and yes, the boom was on. The issue is that this is exactly where I started spraying the Enlist after switching from Liberty. When I switched my spray nozzle tips back at the farm that morning or the day before, I wanted to test them out before we sprayed, so I ran some clean water through them. And after I loaded the sprayer, I completely forgot that I did that, and I did not recharge my boom with the actual appropriate chemicals for killing weeds. So essentially, I just watered the plants and weeds here in this section of the field until my concentration of herbicide in the boom got strong enough down the way somewhere to start actually killing weeds. Some of these weeds, like morning glory, button weeds, don't need 100% dose of 2,4-D to take them down. A 10-inch tall water hemp, though, definitely needs the full rate. So I'm giving my family a free respray here, considering it was operator error. I got a fresh batch in the tank. We're just gonna smoke this in real quick with Enlist and Roundup, hopefully take all these water hemp down. Should be good to go, easy peasy. You know what they say, it's hard to find good help. All right, let's light them up. Are there any ones alive on that pass? Because that's where I would have went next. Looks clean, so I think I'm gonna fold up and leave. At least this is all next to the farm where no one would see it and associate it with our operation. It's hard to complain about being done spraying herbicides. Don't know if we'll have to actually do any legitimate respraying or not. Time will tell on that. Really, the window for corn resprays is pretty much gone because the corn's too tall to be on label for pretty much any herbicide without drops on the sprayer. Technically, you can come back and clean up soybeans with Liberty and Enlist for at least another couple of weeks. Obviously, it'll be too early to tell. If we don't get a rain, it's not going to be an issue because weeds will not be germinating. There's not moisture in that top 3 or 4 inches. If we do get a rain, that'll be a little more complicated of a scenario. There is something that complicates things, though. There's actually a chance of a significant rainfall in the next couple of days. Anywhere from a 1/2 inch to 1 inch of rain. That would definitely be enough to start germinating new weeds in the top couple inches of the soil. It's hard to give you an exact number because every single time I open the iPhone weather app, they've changed the amount. 2 days from now, on Sunday, they're calling from anywhere from a 1/2 inch to 1 inch of rain. Right now, they've settled on 65 hundredths, although if I close this app and open it again, it could be 1.5 inches or it could be 0, depending on how they've updated it in the last 5 milliseconds. Anyways, I think that's definitely going to be it for me. We can be happy that we got all of our herbicides on, and let's just hope and pray that we get a good rain, because if we don't get a rain this weekend, with no more major chances later on in this month of June, we could actually be reaching dire straits rather quickly. I like to say that it's pretty much a pretty steep drop-off when it comes to yield. You're fine until you aren't. Once you reach that point, specifically in July for your corn and soybeans, you're going to start losing a lot of vegetative growth, and ultimately your top-end yield is just going to get absolutely slaughtered. We're still good now, but eventually we won't be. I'm optimistic that we'll get a rainfall. Let's all hope and pray that happens. I'm going to take off. I greatly appreciate every single one of you continuing to tune in and support the channel. Your viewership means the world to me. I'll catch you all in the next episode. Until then, make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and comment down below if you have any questions. You know I love to talk about farming. Have a great day, everyone. Peace!